3x, 3x to the 3x to the Lex. Right back at you with another one. All right, guys. I'm here today to talk to you about the 512 Batocera build from Nightlife 999, the same creator and collaborator with the 3x Lex build, the Lex build. This is his other 512 build that he has available, and I've been seeing a lot of comments and questions and concerns about this build, so I got it in house and I wanted to spend some time with the build so I could let you guys know my opinions on it. So this is some very early impressions concerning this build. My first thoughts about this build is that it's interesting. The Batocera front end is definitely a sexy front end. You know, it's a pretty exotic front end. It looks a lot better than RetroPie. I mean, it pretty much shows off all of the artwork for all of the games. Oh yeah. You know, to talk a little bit about Batocera before I deep dive into the build. A lot of the guys that did work on the Recall Box team pretty much kind of formed like the Batocera. So like they're doing work. A lot of the Recall Box guys have moved on to the Batocera team, and they've done a lot of work and refinement with their front end, and it's very impressive, man. It's very impressive. Visually, it's a lot more pleasing. You get a big preview box, as you can see, that shows off the games, and you also get artwork, better artwork, and you also get a description per game. Now you do get that in RetroPie, but this is even more detailed. And how this front end works is when this is being built, it can pretty much surf the net to search for the artwork and information. So you're gonna notice pretty much every game has it, and that's cool. I like that. Furthermore, it's an impressive build. It has a lot of games on it. A lot of similar stuff that's on the Lex build is on here. However, overall, I would say some of the games, it seems to be less next-gen stuff on here. It's less PSP, less PS1. There is more DS games on here. To give you a breakdown, we can start going through the games. MAME has about 2,745 games. Atari 2,600, 677. Atari 5,200 is 81 games. 51 games for the 7,800. The Lynx is 76 games. WonderSwan 91, Coleco 141, Amiga 1589, Commodore 3263. Hey, and as it goes on, PC Engine 414 games. It does have the DOS games on here, and I know a lot of guys had a lot of questions about the DOS games. So yeah, it does have the DOS games. It has 720 DOS games, so that's something that's not on the Lex build, so to say. So that's something of probably importance to a lot of guys that are interested in these older school DOS games. It's a few standout gems there, and I'm going to be going over that in a future video. But most of the PC games of interest to me were more of the Windows era. But it's some few gems in the DOS era. You know, you take it back to the Wolfenstein 3Ds and the original Doom, Doom 2, stuff like that. you get nearly 500 N64 games, which is an upgrade. It has more N64 games. Some of these games run better on this Batocera setup build than it does on the Lex build. So I have noticed that, and that's interesting that they will run on here and won't run on the Lex build. So that's something to keep in mind. There's a few which I'm going to get into. Has a lot less Dreamcast games. It only has 60 Dreamcast games and 125 Naomi games. And that's like some of the bulk of the, that's some of the bulk of the more next-gen games that I specifically requested and collaborated with for the Lex build. So it's more lacking when it comes to next-gen stuff, but it has probably more on the nostalgia front with the DOS games and stuff of that ilk. PlayStation has about 316 games. PSP is 148. My correction, it does have more PSP games than the Lex build. It has about 24, I will say. So it's an interesting build. You know, I like what I see so far, to be honest. It doesn't seem, you're gonna need a keyboard to set this up first and foremost. You're gonna need a USB keyboard, and for some reason it would not read my wireless K90 setup keyboard, K26 setup. So you may want to grab a USB wired keyboard, get that, and have it plugged into your Pi or USB switch before you start this build up, because you're going to need that to set the build up. Maybe I'll do a video soon for a configuration and setup guide, because it's definitely going to be needed for this. It's a little bit different from the Lex build. The Lex build, you can pretty much set that up just with the controllers from the first time you boot it. But when you boot it here, the controls aren't going to be mapped correctly. So you're going to need basically a keyboard plugged up, and Nightlife includes the instructions, so you can walk through the instructions, and you just press the space bar, brings up the menu. Then you can go into the controllers and configure the controllers. So the setup's a little different though. It's not as straightforward as the Lex build. Some other things I've noticed with this Batocera build also that's interesting. The Batocera build, for some reason, I've encountered more games and things that more things seem to crash the build. It doesn't seem quite as stable as the Lex build for some reason. It isn't like junk or anything, or it's just always crashing. It's just, I haven't noticed that much at all on the Lex build, and for some reason I lost my controller configuration once also, just kind of seemed to go out of the window. So, which was a big issue with me with the Virtual Man image, but I haven't had that happen one time with the Lex build, nor have I heard any of you guys complaining about that. So that's definitely interesting there. Other than that, it has some cool features where you can go in the menu and you can pretty much set the overclock from the menu manually. So you do have that option. Nightlife pretty much has it set at 1950, which is the same as the Lex build. So it runs great out of the box, but you can still try to push it further to get better results. Most of the games that struggle on the Lex build struggle here. Like I said, it was a few exceptions which I'll have to go over in future videos. But you know, it's interesting. This is a breakdown how they show off the artwork and everything. You get the big preview window. You get the artwork over there. You get the breakdown of the game. Front end looks great. I believe this build is compatible with the Ascendant light guns too. Very good collection of PSP games. See, the Lex build has a lot more obscure stuff. This seems to have pretty much the lion's share of US based PSP games, which is great. But a lot of the more obscure stuff I requested, import stuff, doesn't seem to be on this build. So that's something to keep in mind too. It's an interesting build. I would say it really will come down to what you're looking for. You know, what you're trying to get and what your taste is for particular software. If you're looking for the most next gen games, like a loaded Naomi section, a loaded PSP section that really has games that's gonna push the hardware, a loaded Dreamcast section, things like that, I would definitely go Lex build. But if you're really into like having a sexy front end to show off your arcade, and you like the menu system and everything, and you want to play a lot of the old DOS games and Commodore 64 and all of that stuff, and you don't mind spending a little bit more work configuring things, you may want to consider this build. So that's something to keep in mind. The arcade classics is basically under the main section, which is kind of what I used to see on my Hyperspin system. So that's the arcade section. Arcade classic section is the main section basically. It's the same thing. So one thing you will notice is that with this Batocera build, is that the games load fast, like very fast, even faster than the Lex build. So in a lot of ways, I won't say a lot, but in some ways, it is better than the Lex build. I will definitely admit that. The start and the exit of games is, I mean, it's definitely faster. I guess the exiting would be comparable. It may be a little quicker to exit, but starting the games, it definitely boots up faster for sure. I don't think that can really be debated. So that is a good plus to this setup. So anyway, guys, I'm not going to hold you guys too long on this one. I just wanted to give some very, very early impressions of the Batocera 512 build by Nightlife 999. It's a great build. It's a huge upgrade over what's included with the arcade gas cabinet now, even their new build or the old build, it's a huge upgrade over that. It's way better than the Wolfano's 256 Supreme build. It's way better than the Virtual Man build. I'm not quite convinced it's beating the Lex build, but I'm going to have to spend a little bit more time and do more of a deep dive on it. And I'm going to really get into this build and start going over the games and testing things back and forth in comparison with the Lex build. And I'm going to report back soon. But hey, 3X to the Lex out, and I'll get with you on the next one. Peace.